and FirstAmendmentRadio.net.
Evening, folks. It's Barry Chamish. I guess you knew that. Why else would you be tuning in if you didn't? Well, putting together a show is not simple. Boy, oh boy. Our second guest was supposed to be the show, and Janet Phelan was supposed to be next week. And the first, well, with 12 hours to go, my life was changed, and Janet saved me. Janet, how are you? Janet?
Oh, sorry, I am here. I'm here. I had myself muted.
Yes.
Excuse me.
Don't kid yourself about these shows. They look easy. They aren't. All right, let's start with your... Oh, by the way, Janet wrote a book called Exile. I read it. Oh, gosh, we've got lots of time to talk about her point of view. But let's just dive into the easy stuff, all right? First article, and it was a radio interview as well, that the U.S. Biological Weapons Program focuses on the issue of water as a delivery system. In other words, when you take a glass of water, you're getting biological weapons in you. Is that what you're saying?
What I'm saying is that, no, that's not what I'm saying.
All right, what are you saying?
I'm saying that there is a system that has been set up which has yet to be deployed, which will serve as either a biological or a chemical weapons delivery system through the water system. I'm not saying at this point that it has been deployed.
Well, that's kind of easy, isn't it? I mean, you take water and you use it to spread germs. It seems actually obvious.
Well, actually, it should be obvious. What's interesting to me is that the U.S. government has pumped untold billions of dollars into biodefense for airborne weapons. They have a project BioShield. They've got these little sensors up in significant areas in cities to detect airborne biological weapons or pandemic, agents or whatever.
Who would
right?
be setting them off?
Well, if the waterborne issue does go through, what we've got is domestic terrorism, a homegrown domestic terrorism. Who controls the water systems? Government.
No, I'm thinking about the air system.
Wow.
Let's start with that. That's not easy to do. Water is easier.
Well, the thing about the airborne, I don't think airborne is that difficult to do, but there's a problem with airborne, and that is the variability of wind. Okay, so anybody who sets off a biological weapon airborne runs the grave risk of killing himself. Now, if the lines
You've never heard of a suicide bomber?
Well, we're again talking about what the U.S. government is doing. And as disturbing as the actions of our leaders are, I really don't think they're trying to kill themselves off. Now, the water system, the water projects are government projects. And just to clarify, why airborne is so dangerous and waterborne would not be dangerous is the selectivity that has been built into the system that I have been reporting on. Now, there are blueprints that are available online now showing how the selectivity in this system could work. The two articles you should look for would be Water as a Weapon and also Homeward Bound, both by myself. They both have a
Jen, let's get this over with. Plug it right now so we don't have to later. Just plug it.
Well, like I said, there are a couple of articles that go into how this system works. It also goes into the changes in the law that are actually buttressing this system and also shielding it from public oversight. So the two articles you want to look for are Water as a Weapon by Janet Phelan and also Homeward Bound by Janet Phelan.
later we'll spell you and that, but you got that out quickly. Now let's go backwards. You're talking about a likelihood? I mean, what are we talking about here?
Well, one has to come to one has to grapple with what the changes in the United States really mean. The loss of our privacy rights, the loss of our right to petition for redress, the changes in the court system, which are clearly disturbing an awful lot of people now. So, what does this move away from democracy and towards totalitarianism? What does it really mean? And there are a growing number of people who believe that there's going to be another event that is going to very possibly eliminate different groups of people.
How?
Water.
Groups?
Water. I'm sorry, what?
How would they listen? You're saying groups. That means it's aimed to destroy groups of people. But how?
Demographic groups.
I know which groups you mean. How would you get to them specifically? I'm very confused by the claim.
Okay, well, once again, you have to look at selectivity in terms of either delivery system or selectivity in terms of agent. The water delivery system provides selectivity in terms of delivery system. Selectivity in terms of agent is another can of worms. For example, there are people who are concerned that no white people died in the Ebola pandemic recently. It only seemed to affect black people. Why was that? Was there something going on with the Ebola germ that that was only somehow successfully attacking people of color? There are also concerns having to do with other genetically engineered bioweapons. So with genetically engineered bioweapons, you can basically target groups of people based on their genome.
How did the Ebola get into black people in the first place?
Well, Ebola was, they tell us, was transmitted through body fluids.
Yeah.
Right, so.
Is that a hint? All right. Leave it at that. Let's say it's unanswered for the time being. And
I believe I answered it. It's transmitted by body fluids.
Yeah, I know how it's. All right. You know what? In other words, it wasn't water. It was people having, I would say, sex.
Right. Not necessarily sex, no. People, like somebody walks by and sneezes on you, that's body fluids, okay? If you have a corpse, someone who died of Ebola, and somebody touches the corpse and, gets sweat or saliva or whatever on their hands, that's body fluids. So not necessarily sex.
I can imagine that. You just shake someone's hands according to this method.
Right.
And
right.
They get it. Right?
Right, that's right.
Look, I read you, boy, did I read you, and I've got a lot of stuff by you, including the biological weapons statute and whatever Section 817 is, and, well, in short, you're saying the American government is now immune legally from violating biological weapons laws. Expand on that.
That appears to be what Section 817 says, yes.
Oh, you got to have more than that. You're saying that the use of biological weapons is not permitted except this terrific new Section 817 makes it permitted.
No, what I'm saying is that there is a final caveat in Section 817 of the USA Patriot Act in which it states, the prohibitions contained in this section shall not apply to any duly authorized United States governmental activity. Just to clarify for the listeners, Section 817 is the expansion of the biological weapons statute. So with that caveat, the U.S. government indeed gave itself immunity from violating its own biological weapons laws. The question is, why did they do that? What was the purpose
why
of
did they do that?
Well, makes it a lot easier to deploy biological weapons against the populace if you're immune from prosecution, doesn't it?
I believe you know what? You're talking to the right person, unfortunately. I should be.
I think it's very fortunate. Go ahead.
No, I can see. Look, I live in America where little things, I have a rent dispute. Greed wins. I lose. I see that there is a change where really self-protection is really slipping fast.
Isn't it, though?
Did I lose you?
No, I'm sorry. I think my mic might have slipped, but I agree with you. And there are growing numbers of people, and they're forming groups. National Liberty Alliance is one of them. Americans Against Abusive Probate Guardianships is another one. Groups of people
against
are trying
probate guardianship. What is a probate guardianship?
A probate guardianship is generally launched through a court proceeding when somebody goes to court and alleges that an individual needs a guardian. That they can say that the person is mentally ill or the person is forgetful. And upon the
initiation, about old people, right?
Old people, disabled people, younger disabled people. Yeah. So
now I'm not sure why this fits. Certainly in biological weapons statute, which, by the way, what you read doesn't say to me what you determined it should say.
It says the prohibitions contained in this section shall not apply to any duly authorized United States governmental activity, Barry. And what that says is that we are exempt. We, us, U.S., are exempt from this law.
All right. Again, I'm doing my best, and also, you have to understand, my poor listeners, I'm trying to sort out. In your mind, these are easy concepts. Trust me, you lost a few people. All right, just leave it at that. All right, we're going to return to this. All right. Janet is not simple. And here's where we're going to get. I'm going to do the easy two before we go into this. Oh, my goodness, these two articles from May and July 4th are really very kind of telling her story all through and through. But let's do what you claim in Newark, California, under the Harbor General Hospital, is your version of a barred cell room. Well, you call it a mini black site. Let's get this over with before we go on to your long ones. What do you mean by a mini black site? First of all, what's a major black site?
Well, I think a major black site might be what the Guardian in England reported a few months ago as what is going on now in Chicago. There's an area.
They're arresting illegal immigrants and then shipping them back. That's how I read it.
No. That's not what's happening at the black site in Chicago. What's going on there is that the police are taking individuals there. There was no mention of illegal immigrants. They're taking people, they're arresting them and taking them there without processing them through a jail, without reading them their rights, without allowing them that phone call where you can, call mom and say, hey, Mom, I'm in jail. So they call it a black site.
These are Americans? You're saying they're law-abiding Americans being taken to the site, and who knows what's being done to them, but they're law-abiding Americans.
These are people who have been arrested in Chicago.
Yes.
So whether or not they're law-abiding is up to the system to decide, okay? However, if police deprive an arrestee, a detainee essentially, of their rights to due process, they're not getting processed, they're not getting booked, they're not getting legally charged, they're being stuck in this place, not allowed to make phone calls. And the Guardian basically exposed this a few months ago. And, it's quite a shocking thing.
Homan Square. Where is Homan Square?
That's the place in Chicago where
all right. So
where they're taking these people. Right.
What did the Guardian claim these people were being arrested without being charged for?
Well, I'm imagining that they're being arrested for a number of things. It doesn't matter, Barry. If you're arrested and aren't charged, then your rights have been violated. I mean, goodness knows what the people, at least one person died there in captivity. So,
may I ask of what?
Well, that's a good question, isn't it?
Well, it's worthy of being answered.
Well, I don't know.
Well, go back to this article. I'm hoping it's old age.
What's that? Well,
how he died.
I would hope that the person wasn't detained so long that he died of old age without.
No, I don't mean that.
His rights.
You're implying that he was experimented on or beaten or something, and I'm just hoping it's more natural than that.
Well, we certainly hope it was, but the issue of the problems going on in our legal system, and you said something a few minutes ago about, things were changing and you have a rent dispute and, things.
Yes. Lawyers cost a lot. What am I going to get a lawyer just to have a place to live and work? It was never this expensive. Yeah, I've got complaints. Fine. Why were you in Norwich? What were you doing? By the way, you're calling it a mini site. Why would you come to that? Go through your Norwich. What happened in there? Why do you think it was a site? Why were you in some way rendered unconscious? Stuff like that.
I call it a mini black site because I was taken there by a police officer. Actually, he's named. This is discussed in my book, Exile, and the officer who grabbed me and took me there is named. His name is Officer Lauren Dawson. He was subsequently promoted to a detective and then to an investigator with the Orange County District Attorney's Office. And I call it a mini black site because it's basically outfitted for one detainee. It's got one cell with one bed.
You were arrested?
I was not arrested. I was never arrested. I was never charged. I was never processed in the legal system.
What were you doing there?
I had walked into the police department on the evening of January 3rd of 2003. I had received a threat, and I was requesting assistance. Now, there had been quite a bit of
investigate your threat?
I was grabbed by Lauren Dawson. I was handcuffed. I was put into the back of the squad car and taken to the mini black site, which is in the parking garage, actually, underneath Harbor General Hospital.
Nonetheless, let's go backwards a bit. You say you were threatened. You put in a complaint. For some reason, that complaint got you put into this mini site. Tell me if I'm getting it wrong.
Walking into the police department, I believe, got me put into that mini site. There was quite a bit of activity going on prior to that. My book, Exile, goes into the depth of the activity, and because there certainly was a reason I mean, I wasn't just like, oh, somebody walks into the police department, let's bring her to Norwalk and try to kill her. There was an enormous amount of activity.
You think they tried to kill you?
Yeah, that's what's in the book, I believe. I believe that's what's in the book.
That's a major claim.
That's a major claim. Sure is.
How'd you get out of it?
I guess by the grace of God, Barry. I was unconscious for several days. I was in a coma for several days. And I woke up in a Long Beach hospital on all kinds of equipment, including a heart monitor. So I would say I got out of it by the grace of God.
All right. Again, I'm wondering, why do you think it was a mini black site? What do you think was done to you that was in some way black?
Well, wasn't legally processed, wasn't arrested, wasn't charged, wasn't given a phone call, was just taken somewhere and rendered into a coma. So I think that qualifies as a black site. That doesn't qualify as
it's some story, that's for sure.
And I want to make sure that the listening audience understands that I'm naming names here. I named Lauren Dawson. I gave the trajectory of his career following his activities surrounding me. So I do believe it's important to hold the responsible people culpable. I've never been sued for what I've said and written now about Lauren Dawson.
Okay. I'm going to say it again. How did you get out? What did they release you based on? First of all, what were you doing there? What did they think was wrong with you?
Who said anybody thought anything was wrong with me? There had been an enormous amount of activity. You've read the book, Barry.
Yes.
You know the things that were the things that were happening to my mother. You know the things. You know the secret agent Jack Smith connection. All that. So all these things, had been sort of building for a while, and I walked into the police department hoping to get some help, and instead I got attacked.
All right. I think that's cleared up somewhat. All right. The point, once again, is how were you unconscious? What made you unconscious?
I was injected with something. I don't have the name of the individual. There were about 5 or 6 people waiting for me in the black site. I asked every single one of them if they were a police officer, and they all answered affirmatively. And then one of them came at me with a hypodermic and injected me, and I went down like a sack of potatoes and was unconscious for several days.
All right. And while you were unconscious, what exactly happened to you? Did you wake up in some way different? This is the part. Why would they make you unconscious?
Well, I do think they were trying to kill me. I mean, the fact that I was unconscious for so long, that I wake up in a hospital on a heart monitor. What we're talking about here is a very aggressive instance where the police basically, I think they took their best shot, and the reasons that they did this, because this, as I keep saying, did not happen out of the blue.
I hate to do this, but we have to take 3 minutes off. And by the way, for my listeners, Janet did write Exile, and boy, it's an awful lot of hard work. If what you're hearing you don't believe, she's got a book out there, and we'll let her plug it when we get back. But we have to take 3 minutes off. So, folks, this is Barry Chamish. See you in 3, and then first we'll plug each other. Away we go. 3 minutes, folks.
You're listening to FirstAmendmentRadio.com worldwide. Freedom is never free. We need your support today at FirstAmendmentRadio.com.
The program you are listening to is 100% sponsored by you, the listener, on this First Amendment Rights Media channel. You will notice that there are few commercials on this radio network. There's a good reason for that. Corporate advertising dollars come with strings that limit program content. So without your help, these programs cannot continue on Internet or our several affiliates. If you benefit by the educational law programs, we ask you to give. If you are admonished or nurtured by the Bible and ministry programs, we ask you to give. If some voice a cause that you are passionate about, we ask you to give. If you believe in any of these, we ask you to support them as you would a missionary on a continual basis, as if giving a tithe for missionary radio. These programs are not commercially viable and must be supported by those faithful to the cause of truth. Look for the button to sponsor your favorite programs at our listen and schedule pages on the Internet. Then, when you subscribe, we will send you the last quarterly MP3 CD of that program immediately, and continue to do so with each new quarter. We will also give you unlimited archive access to all of our programs. We're asking you to give much less than a tithe, so that you may also send support directly to a particular program host, cause, and anywhere else the Spirit may lead you. Do all to the glory of our God and Creator, for His holy nation, the only kingdom that will last forever. Thank you for listening. Gold and silver is tremendously undervalued. Global demand vastly exceeds mine supply by more than 60% annually. There is little in the financial world more certain than a coming explosion in the prices of gold and silver. The U.S. dollar continues to lose value and respect as the world's reserve currency. Our nation faces challenges on many fronts, and a day doesn't pass without another economist bringing forth warnings of impending economic calamity. There has never been a better time than right now to acquire physical gold and silver. Discount Gold and Silver Trading was founded on the principles of truth and honesty. We believe in providing a quality product, quality service, and most importantly, competitive pricing. We provide all forms of precious metals, including American gold, silver, platinum, and rare investment and circulated coins. Silver bars, rounds, and 90% silver bags are on hand for the silver investor. Gold self-directed IRAs are available. Call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188. Toll free, that's 1-800-375-4188.
Hey, folks. Boy, we could do a whole show. Look, last night, 3 in the morning, my next guest has a business appointment, and I'm left high and dry, and oh, thank goodness for Janet. But first of all, let me plug myself. All my books are at lulu.com. That's www.lulu.com. You'll see a search box right in my name, last name anyways. Chamish, C-H-A-M-I-S-H. And thanks to David Samrin, my website is still up, www.barrychamish.com. Janet, tell people how to get to Exile, and then we've got a ton of stuff to go, okay? Janet?
Exile was published last year, and it is available at thebookpatch.com. And just to say briefly, we're talking about the assault on me by the police officers. However, the book is basically not so much, oh, this terrible thing happened to me. I mean, what I'm trying to do with this book here is to let people know that we don't have any rights anymore, and that those who step into certain kinds of issues are having some trouble. And those particular issues that people may be stepping into that's causing them this trouble are issues that are fundamental to the survival of us all. So there's a lot of discussion in this book on various mechanisms by which our rights are being deprived. And I think that the book, should be of interest to anyone who wants to feel safe living in the United States.
Just for the fun of it, spell Phelan.
P as in Peter, Helan.
All right. Now, let's go and look. Yesterday was a big deal. An agreement was signed with Persia, our allies in Persia, and Israel's going bananas because they believe the Iranians are going to make nuclear weapons and this and that. I won't go into it. The American Middle East policy has been a deliberate mucking up. Well, look, 9/11, I don't believe was the way you got it. Colin Powell lied through his teeth, and next thing you knew, you were in Iraq hunting down Saddam Hussein and the whole Middle East. Well, there isn't a square foot of it at peace. Not a lot of refugees, a lot of dead people, but you did it again, a new agreement. Now, we're going to talk about something, what you call, Universal Periodic Review, UPR, last May, 2 months ago, something of the UN criticized the United States for all its policies, especially weapons of mass destruction and on and on. All right, take it from here. That's my intro. What is the UPR, and what did or didn't it do?
Yes. Every 5 years in Geneva, the United Nations does a periodic review of actually the human rights record of every country. There's a cycle. And the United States came up for review this past May. It's the second time that the United States has submitted to this review. The first time was, I believe, in 2010.
Had conferences. They're batting 2 for 2.
Okay, right. So this is the second review.
Not worthy of noting.
Okay, it's the second review, right. And basically, delegates from different nations get to comment on their concerns about the human rights record. And there are NGOs, non-government organizations, human rights groups that also get to submit papers and to air their concerns. And one of the interesting things about this review process is that the United States made a decision to tell the United Nations some whoppers. They apparently had...
By that, I mean you're not referring to Burger King meals, are you?
The United States chose to lie to the United Nations in order to put some spit shine on its public persona. Now, I'm going to run down a few of the issues where the lies were the statements of the United States were checkable. And I certainly did check them and found out that the United States was simply trying to snow the United Nations. Now, this isn't really very nice, Apparently, our mainstream media is now so fast asleep that nobody bothered to check some of the statements that the United States was making. So I took it upon myself to do so. Now,
by the way, this was in response to claims against it, right?
Well,
no.
But yes,
they volunteered to. All right.
No. Basically, like I said, the different countries make their comments. We're worried about.
And America replies. It's like a debate.
America replies, right?
There we go.
Right, and so, for example. A gentleman named James Cadogan, who is senior counselor to the Assistant Attorney General of the United States of America, told the United Nations that the Department of Justice is very aggressive in prosecuting aggressive bad police officers. In fact, that over 400 such prosecutions had taken place in the last 5 years by the Department of Justice. As a matter of fact, there were, I believe, either 5 or 6 such prosecutions. Nowhere close
Actually,
to 400.
You said 56.
No, I did not. That was about another issue. That was about another
really?
issue. That was not.
You're
no,
saying
that
there's
was not
only been 5 or 6.
There were 5 or 6, right?
Abuse?
I contacted the Department of Justice. They refused to tell me. I went and talked to some high-profile law professors. I did research, and no more than 6 such prosecutions by the Department of Justice in the relevant time period, not 400. Now, one interesting thing about this James Cadogan and the statements he was making, as we know, a lot of the aggression by the police of late have been, the high-profile aggressions have been against people of color. And
or black people.
Yeah, black people.
You can say black, it's okay. Of color is like 1966. All right, black policemen were...
black victims. Black victims.
No, you're saying James Cadogan is black.
Yeah, I'm saying James
in Baltimore,
Cadogan,
by the way, 2 of the 6 were black. The victims were black, but also the perpetrators. Well, the president is black. It gets very, becomes a very soupy mixture. You call it Uncle Tomism in short.
Well, James Cadogan is black, and so we had a black man getting up there saying, talking about all these non-existent prosecutions against aggressive police officers. Now, interestingly enough, there was another issue of attempting to use a member of a minority to tell another lie to the United Nations, and that would have been the lie told by Kevin Washburn, who is with the Department of the Interior. And Washburn told the United Nations that United States has restored about 1 million acres to Indian tribes under this administration. Now, that sounds pretty good. And because this was a checkable figure, I did my research and found out that 3 days after Kevin Washburn, who happens to be a member of an Indian tribe in Oklahoma, the Chickasaw Nation, he also testified in front of Congress and stated that 300,000 acres had been restored to Indian tribes under this administration. So the figure he gave Congress was 1/3 of what he told the United Nations. Now, I think that when you use someone who is allegedly an Indian, he would, be seen as having more credibility because he's a member of the group, right? So he gets up there at the UN and talks about all this great work Obama's doing for the Indians, which happens to be a load of hooey, at least in terms of these 1 million acres which were not returned to the Indian tribes. So those were a couple of issues. Another issue had to do with the United States statements about the number of federal hate crimes prosecutions. And the United States claimed that over 200 individuals had been convicted under federal hate crime laws in the past 5 years. So, good golly, Miss Molly, I went ahead and contacted both the Department of Justice and the FBI asking for documentation of these 200 federal hate crime convictions, and I was refused that information. So I went online. It took me like a long time just searching and searching and searching, and I came up then with a grand total of 56. Okay, I also went ahead and entered a FOIA, Freedom of Information Act request, into the Department of Justice, and they have 20 days to respond. It's been about 60 days. I haven't gotten a response. So much for freedom of information. And
are you entitled to a response?
Yes, I'm legally entitled to a response. I got a letter back saying, it'll take us a little time to, we're going to process this. And then I waited my 20 days, and I recontacted the FOIA people and got nothing. So at that point, I started taking a look at...
Is this common? Do people turn to the Freedom of Information and get the same sort of stonewalling you're talking about?
Yes, it's very common now. Actually, the Wall Street Journal recently ran an article about how I believe they here, this is the quote from the Wall Street Journal: "Most administrations play games with FOIA, but the Obama White House has turned stonewalling into an art form." So the problems in getting a response...
Is it going to go back? We're going to get freedom of information the old way after Obama leaves?
You think that things will get better after Obama leaves? I don't know. I think
you. Maybe you'll get your request filed.
If
the stonewalling doesn't become an art form and it goes back to the way it's supposed to be, maybe you will get a response.
Well, that would be absolutely wonderful, Barry. I mean, if things go back to the way they should be, because the way I see it is that things are progressively getting worse and worse, that each administration is building upon the transgressions of the prior administration and turning up the heat bit by bit. I think it would be wonderful if things went back to the way they should be and we got answers to our questions, if the police stopped murdering people, if the Guantanamo Bay detainees got their rights to habeas corpus granted. That was another issue. The article, by the way, was published in New Eastern Outlook that we're talking about, and it's called "Just Say Anything. The U.S. Responds to the UN Review of its Human Rights Record."
You know what, folks? We are archived for a week. LibertyArchives.com. If you're interested and you missed it, go listen to us for a week and you'll get it back. All right. Now, look, according to the Wall Street Journal, the FOIA, they're demanding sky-high legal fees to file. Now, in theory, you shouldn't need a lawyer. It should be free, in theory. How can they charge you legal fees? I don't get this.
Well, I believe the Wall Street Journal was referencing sky-high fees for the records. For example, media is supposed to be exempt from these document fees, but apparently what the Obama administration is doing is ignoring the fact that some of these requests are coming in from media and charging, excessive fees. Now, some people's requests are, thousands. They need thousands of pages or whatever. So if they impose the fees, then it becomes prohibitive to get the requests fulfilled. Other issues that were discussed by the Wall Street Journal was that the government was failing to process requests within the legal time limit, which was, what I ran into. There's also...
Well, then they're doing something illegal.
Yeah, they are.
So, what do we do about this?
Yeah, what do we do about this? Oh, so I think this is the fundamental question for our time, Barry, and
You're talking about a massive avoidance of accountability. You just don't process any files, and everything is peachy from your point of view. By the way, I'm running into this on a personal level. There is a change of attitude. People are not afraid. If you are exploiting people, you can get away with it right now. There is that problem.
Yes. Yes, there is a big problem with that. Yep. I call it the Great American Yard Sale.
You can get a cheap watch at it? What does that mean?
Yeah, well, people are just grabbing what they can take, and there's no legal accountability, and you can go to court and protest this, that, and the other, and you get nowhere. So I call it the Great American Yard Sale, right? Just grab it and run. Grab it and run.
That the that information is being destroyed at FOIA. That's a major journal. Someone should take notice, you would think.
Well, the Wall Street Journal did take notice, and I was very pleased to see
that.
No,
I mean afterwards. All right? They're making a claim that at FOIA they are destroying. Forget what you said about the legal time limit and the sky-high legal fees. They're actually destroying files.
Yes, they are destroying files. Yeah, that's what the Wall Street Journal was indicating. Now, I ran into that. I want to say very briefly, because I know we don't have a lot of time left.
Actually, we do. I'll tell you why in a second, but what were you about to say?
I ran into the excessively redacting information when I was making Public Records Act requests for water records. I had contacted, this goes back to the water as the delivery system issue that we were talking about earlier on in the show. I had contacted the city of Los Angeles asking for certain blueprints of the water system, and I got a letter back saying, well, it's going to take us a few weeks because we have to create entirely new blueprints for you because we're going to redact, which means take out the information that we don't want you to have. And
that
the letter
was in
that
the
I
letter
got,
you received.
The letter, and I actually put it up on the web. It's attached to Water as a Weapon. So at taxpayers' expense, the city of Los Angeles created entirely new blueprints for me, which happened.
I'm wondering if they want that information in the hands of people who could use it badly.
People who could, unfortunately, that's a point. I mean, we have all these terrorists now running around the streets, or so they tell us. I mean, they tell us all kinds of things. The problem here is that what they redacted, what they cut out from the blueprints was exactly what I was alleging functioned as the chemical bio delivery system. Now, as far as Los Angeles went, I pulled a fast one because I was able to get the bona fide blueprints from another sort of resource, not by going to City Hall, right? So I already had the blueprints, so I could compare what they gave me to what I had, and they redacted.
If the blueprints are accurate, you could poison Los Angeles water.
Well, why would they let me ask you this, Barry, because you got a good head on your shoulders, okay?
Sometimes.
What I'm claiming with this water delivery system is that they have a double-line system, okay? And I'm claiming that one line is water, the other line is not water, and that they have service lines running into streets that are being withheld by valves, and I've got the goods to prove it. Now, why would they give me blueprints that only show one water line? Because what's fundamental to this system is that there have to be two. So if they're concerned about people poisoning the water system, wait. If they're concerned about people poisoning the water system, why would they give me blueprints showing where water lines are, but only one of them, not two?
Actually, you lost me there. That was my initial question, in fact. You didn't answer it.
What?
Look, first of all, we're running out of time. I want to tell you my situation. Please hang on the line. Now, my producer, Nick, is a very liberal guy at times anyways, and he says the next guest, David Livingston, didn't mean to leave me high and dry, but I've got a very thin skin about this radio show. Just stick around and hang up if we get along and I'm doing something decent. That's it. Let's go back to yours. Did you agree to that, by the way?
I actually have a meeting scheduled in about 10 minutes. So
okay, don't stick around. I'll make do with the show. But I've got a very thin skin.
Well, I know I used to have my own radio show, and I know it's very disturbing to find out at the last minute that a guest either can't make it or can't make it the whole time. It's like it's a crisis. So I was glad to be able to pinch hit for an hour. And I'm sure you'll do fine with David.
Listen, I got all kinds of stuff to talk to you about. I read you quite thoroughly, and a lot of it, by the way, I don't know if it's accurate, but it's laudable you're saying it. All right, leave it at that. Look, I would
Barry, I'm going to interrupt you. I'm going to be real rude and interrupt you, okay? This business about the United States giving itself immunity from its own biological weapons laws, setting up a double-line water system, and we didn't get to go into it in depth, so I'm really urging people to read Water as a Weapon and find out what's the big deal about having a second line. This is actually one of the most disturbing blips on the civil rights, human rights radar in the United States. You know, we've got police aggression, we've got courts that don't work, and we have here a pandemic delivery system right beneath our feet. So, I'm really glad that you gave me some airtime.
I always give the time. As for pandemic, look, boy, are we getting disturbance. Look, the fact is, I stopped analyzing the Middle East. There's another agreement. It's going to be more chaos. All right? It's being done on purpose. It's ruining the lives of people, and they're not especially, they're not people I necessarily like, but I don't want their lives wrecked. We've got an agreement now. You can be sure it's no good. All right? Without even looking at the details, we got another one today. That's all. That's all I'm going to say.
Well, I'd sure like to find out more about it.
I'm ignoring it. Look, if David comes on, I'll talk to him the next hour. If not, I haven't written anything because I think I wrote it all. Look, we suffered a Holocaust. It didn't have to be suffered. When you look at the history of my country, it's not so good. All right, leave it at that. Now, what you're talking, and I'll talk about that. If David doesn't show up, I'll talk about that last article. You're talking right now that Eric Holder responded to a reply that deployment of drones against American citizens could be lawful. Expand.
Right. Eric Holder responded to
another black
letter.
Man, I want you to know, he actually, oh, darn, I was going to talk about Mark Rich and how he got the power. David Livingston is here. He will be my guest. Janet, we have plenty more to talk about. It was a very, very good conversation, okay?
Thank you, Barry. I look forward to talking to you soon. Have a good hour with David.
We will be in touch, I assure you. Folks, this is Barry Chamish. In 7 minutes, David Livingston is here for the next. And as you know, the second hour of every show, I've got this. I don't speak as well as second hour.